Hey, this is Jake from BIM Template. So for today's devlog, I kind of wanted to go over making another Dynamo graph just to assist with workflows. And this is going to be a fairly simple script, but this is going to be something that will save me a significant amount of time while doing updates. So I have this detail here, and all these line work is set up, and I'm not really a fan of the line weights and how they are set up and how they are mapped. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually remap those. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then map a new cut line along the edges for the detail. And we have about 70 of these details we got to process and do this manually. And so having a line weight set up for our system for our graphic system is going to take a lot of effort and time to be able to draw it manually, copy it, set the assigned visibility, and set the adjustments and everything. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into this detail already open over here. I've already done a little bit of the legwork in changing the graphic, the line weights on there. So we have basically line weight 1 is like the lowest line weight, and then right now we have line weight 3, and that is our line weight that we are going to be using as our next layer up, and then we have line weight 5 and then line weight 7. So and the user will be able to manually specify those inside of the properties panel. And one option I could do is simply highlight all of these and go in, highlight, select all these. I copy it and I paste it, and then I map the visibility to the correct parameter and everything and turn off the reference plane. And I could do all that manually, but I could do that 70 times, and that's like 3 processes I have to do, and I have to remember that I did that every single time. So that can be a little bit difficult to do. So instead, I'd like to try and automate that. And the way that I'm going to automate that is I'm going to get out Dynamo and I'm going to create a simple script in order to do that process. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to actually just start by collecting. So you can do a couple of different ways. I could literally manually select every single line and make sure that I have all the correct lines. And that's an option, but it does take quite a while to do that sort of thing. I could all do something where I highlight select and then I could like filter all the line weights. But I think the best process would be for me to just literally collect all the line weights in here and then filter based on a specific setting, a specific line weight that we're wanting to select. So we're going to start off and we're going to do categories. And then we're going to get the lines. All right, and then we're going to do all categories. All elements of a category. All right, and you see, if we do this, we get to see all of the elements of a category. So I'm going to turn this off to manual just to make sure. So we have all of our detail curves in here. And what we want to do is we want to filter. And so since we are being very specific about the line weight that we are specifying, what we can do is then just get the elements parameters, and then we can specifically search for that subcategory parameter and the line weight associated. And we could do something where we then filter the get the element parameter and filter the parameters and then specify what the actual value is for the parameter. But instead we're just going to cut, since we know exactly what we're doing, and this doesn't need to be flexible, then we're just going to get this specific information. So we're going to do element dot parameters. Here we go. And then we're going to go into connect those. And to very specifically filter that stuff, we're going to do a comparison Boolean filter. So string from object. And then we're just going to do a string here, subcategory. All right, and then we're going to do a comparison. now that we have those compared, we want to then process this. So if we run it, we can see we get a script of then going through all of the parameters that are associated with each and every item in the list. And then we're checking whether this is equal to the element in here. And so we're comparing a string to a string. And we're getting false. So we're getting all these. And so in order to filter this out, we want to make sure that which of these elements contains this specific element. And so right now we have a huge list of every single comparison in the parameters. So what we want to do is list any true. And what we'll want to do that, we want to then take that, and then we want to make sure it's a level 2 because we want to compare whether any of these things in this list here. So we have, this is list 1, list 2, list 3, and we want to make sure anything in that list contains a true. And if so, we want to then set that as a filter. So if we run it, you can see now instead of 945, we have 85 items. And we are able to then see which items are true. You can see we have a couple of true items here. That's just great. So now we want to filter. So filter mask, filter Boolean by mask. And we wanted to use this as the Boolean and compare the 85 to the 85. So we want to take these and we want to put it in here. And we'll make it a little straight, make it a little clean. And if we were to run it, then we then have all of our specific detail lines. So we have all of our detail curves, and we have 20 elements. And if I were to highlight select here and go into here and check that, you see that we have 20 lines. So we're filtering everything correctly. All right, so now we have a collection of all of the detail lines that we want. Let's group this. All right, now that we have that, we now want to have these elements and we want to be able to duplicate these. So these are detail curves, and we want to be able to duplicate these curves 2 times because these are 3. We want to duplicate them to be a 5 and a 7 because we already have the line 1 already set up in this detail. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to do detail curve. And all right, and so now that we have that, we're basically, now we are getting the curve element, the curve information off of each of these. So basically the line information, and this works with arcs and splines. And the next thing we want to do is, now that we have that information, we want to then create those detail curves. So what we want to do is detail curve by curve. Okay, and now that we have that, we want to duplicate that because we need to do it twice. You could do a different filtering method where you could then iterate across it, but since this is such a simple graph, we're just going to duplicate those and have that be our duplicate graph here. And so you can see we need a view and we need a curve. So we have a curve, we can specify the curve. This is going to do duplicate once, duplicate twice, and we need the view. So what we need to do is we need to get the active view. And so we need to get the documents.current. Nope, not that one. We want to get a different one, actually. That's not an out of the box one. This one. And then now that we have document, we need to get a view. So we need to get the active view. All right, and then we have the active view, and now we are able to connect this, and this is getting our current document, our family document. In certain nodes, that in certain packages, they won't allow you to be able to use this one sometimes. Sometimes they want you to specify specifically the family document, so there's a specific node for family current documents. but a lot of the out of the box nodes are able to work with this one, but certain ones require you to get specifically the family document. So now that we have that, we can plug those in right there, and now we have our new group, and this is our duplicate lines. All right, so now that we have that, and if we were to run that, that's going to run and then duplicate those lines. And so we're not going to run that at this moment. So instead, we are now going to then filter down to create the subcategories and assign the subcategories. And because we're in a family document, we need to specifically get the object style subcategories. Since these are lines in a project environment, we'd be assigning a line style, but we need to assign an object style inside of the family document. So we're going to go and do that now. So what we want to do is create a list. And we're just going to combine these because we're going to be getting, we need to then find and set the object styles for this. But first, let's get the subcategories. So we need to first get the graphic style, which is going to then, we're going to get the graphic style class, and then we're going to actually then search for a specific information, subcategory information name. So in order to do that, we're going to use a ORCID package family node. So we're going to do an element by name. Not this one. Element dot by name. Will type value. No. By name. This one. And so this one allows us to be able to search that information. We also need the document. So it'll just pull the current document. So we don't need to specify that. But we need to specify what the class is, and we need to specify, otherwise it'll just pull the standard one. And we need to then put the name. So first what we're going to do is we're going to specify the names for the object style subcategories that we're going to be referencing. So let's do that. And we're just going to create a list. So we're just going to be BT underscore 05 solid. And then do BT 07 solid. And then what we can do is then just end the list. Oh, we need the quotation marks. There we go. Now that we have that, we have the names, and we should get the class, element classes, and we're going to get the graphic styles. And that's the one to be able to specify the object style subcategory. And we're just going to get the, actually what we're going to do is just copy this one over here. I like to specify it myself because sometimes the nodes just don't work properly the way that I want them to. And so now that we have that, we have the specified subcategory, and we're going to group this. All right. And now once we have that, we want to now find the specific subcategory parameter information so that we can then assign this to our new detail lines. And so to do that, we want to get the element. So we're going to grab that over here. Okay. Elements, and then we're going to get the element name, our parameter name. Oh, nope, not that one. We want to get the parameter.name. Here we go. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to find at times. This is an older version of Dynamo, so the newer ones has better search. But it's just something you got to work with the older versions because we're in Revit 2024, and I think this is just at 3. I think we just now are at 3.0 in Dynamo. Could be wrong about that, but it doesn't matter. So now that we have that, we want to then do a search. We want to do an equal search, do a Boolean filter. And we need to have a specific Boolean. So what we want to do is then specify subcategories. So we're kind of doing the same thing, but we're not specifying specifically the O3 because we just want to be able to find the parameter itself. And then we're going to use that parameter to then be assigned. So now that we have that, all right. And now we'll do filter mask Boolean. This is our Boolean. This is our filter mask. We have that. All right, that is all specified now. And we're going to group this again, just a good practice. Filter to subcategory parameters. Because now we have our specific list of elements all filtered. Now we just want to get the subcategory values. And if we were to process this, and we're not going to process it because we're going to be duplicating in a minute, this will then give us our list of filtered values specifically for all of the new lines that we create. And now that we have this, we can now then assign this information to our values that we have set here. So what we want to do is use the parameter.setValue. All right. Nope, that's a global parameter. We don't want that one because there's different ones for different parameters. And here we go for this one. And what we want to do is then, this is our parameter, and these are our new values. We'll bring these in. And one of the things we want to do is we want to set the lacing to longest. Otherwise, Revit is just going to basically iterate across this list using this, and there's only going to be either two. So we want to iterate across this longest list, and then we want to then make sure that we have the levels updated. So sometimes we'll have to update the levels that we're searching, but for this one, all we need to do is just change the lacing to longest. All right, and we're just gonna create a group and then just label this as okay, and we're gonna change the group style. We're gonna change this to output. All right, so we have that all set up. Now what we're gonna do is we're then going to, once we have these generated and the correct subcategories assigned to the lines so that it'll change our line weights, we now want to then also adjust the visibility parameters that we have set up in here. And so I'm just going to go through and check real quick to make sure we have the correct line styles. Yep, we have the right. And we want to assign each of the line weights to each of these categories here. And then in each of those different parameters, we're then going to allow the user to assign and these are all controlled by formulas, and then the user will specify the integer, and it'll allow them to be able to specify the line weight. So we just have 0, 1, 2, and 3. So it just shows all line weight 1, line weight 3, line weight 5, and line weight 7. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into here, and we're going to use a couple of out-of-the-box nodes as well. So a couple of the ORCID nodes, just so that we can get that assign these, because we're needing to associate the visibility of this line with the parameter that we have set, and so the new ones that we are creating. So in order to do that, we first want to do a family parameter dot associate. Okay, and this is the one we need. All right, so what I'm going to do is we now need to then input a family parameter, and we need to input the element parameter. So we basically need to take this line as the element, and then we need to get the parameter of that element, and then we need to then associate it with the host family parameter that we have in here. All right, and so the way that we do that is first we need to then, let's get the family parameter. So let's do family document dot by name. Okay. And so if we were to put that in there, that's how that works. And we need to specify the name. And we're using this node, we can just type out the name instead of having to go through and filter and do all this again. All we have to do is just specify it the one time. And so I'm going to use yet another code block node. And so what we're going to do is create a list, and we're just going to do okay. And then all right, now that we have that, we're now going to take that, put that in there, and we need a family document. So this is going to automatically pull just from the default one, but here's what we can do. We can pull this, put this in here, and we could either just map this string all the way over here. If we have a very large script, then you could do something like that if you're trying to reduce nodes. But this is a very simple call. This is not like a complex node, so we're doing a lot of function. It's not making a lot of functions. So we can just do something like that. And we're going to actually block something in here because we need to, and I'll do that in a minute. But now we need to get the parameter dot by parameter name. And we're just trying to get the parameter of the element. And to do that, so if we do that, it's the element parameter. And so we want to get the name, and what we want is the visibility parameter, the visible parameter. So in order to do that, I'm just going to use this existing one right here. We're just going to do visible. And we could create our own code block, but I'm just using this existing one. And so we need to input the element that we are using. And in order to do that, we are now specifying, because we're doing this for all three, we're doing the 30, the 5, and the 7. So what we want to do is create another list. And this second list is going to have, and we're just going to keep these in order. And we need to get this original list as well. So what we're going to do is take these, put that in there, and we can then pin this. So make it a little bit more clean. And now we have our list of all of our elements in that ordered list, and take that, put that in there. And we also want to take this and put this in this node right here. And so now that we have that in here and have all of these linked up, this can now be grouped, except here's the thing. So when Dynamo executes a section of code, executes code, it doesn't necessarily do a left to right order of operations. It kind of just executes it as it sees fits, and it's not necessarily consistent. So what could happen is we get this, and then we're creating this list, and then it could execute this, but this information isn't available and all set up because we don't have all of this stuff assigned into here. And so what we want to do is we want to create a pass-through parameter that will stop anything from processing this before this stuff executes. And so there are specific nodes that you can use, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to specify a code block and this is the simplest one I like. It's just pass through. Wait for, and then we're going to specify the first index in here. So basically what this is we're inputting this. This is the information we're passing through right here. But before this can pass through, we're waiting for this information to then be processed and added into here. And so we're going to wait for this to be executed. And then we're going to do that. And so what this is simply just we're creating a list, and Revit won't be able to execute the output for this code until this list is complete, because we have these two inputs. And so that is a simple way to be able to stop Revit from, or Dynamo from, executing other code you don't want to process before this stuff. And on more complex codes, that's something that you want to pay attention to, just to make sure that you have these proper order of operations set up. So now that we have that, all set up, we can then kind of make this look a little bit neater, and we can then group this and group, and then this is two lines. Okay. And one of the things we want to pay attention to that I forgot that we need to update is we need to change the lacing to the longest for this one, and we need to change the lacing to longest for this one as well. The lacing is the longest. So now that we have all that set up, we now have our code that is collecting all of the lines that we currently have set up in here. We are then duplicating those lines, those detailed curves, and we are then, of the two new ones that we created, we are then assigning the correct subcategory information to those, so we have the proper line weights, and then taking all of our new lines that we have and then moving those over to this, and we're associating the visibility parameter into the correct visibility parameters that we have specified in the family. And so if everything goes according to plan, you should see we have our line weight set up. And so if we go to here, you can see we have our type 5 and we don't have that associated. And we have some problems right here. So what we have is failed to operate. So we might have a misspelling here. See, I specified the subcategory. We didn't specify the parameter. Okay, so that's the problem here. So we want to have O3 line weight. That's the problem. All right, and so if we were to then go back and change that, so now we have just the one line right here. All right, so now if we run this script, and everything works as normal. So if we go into here, we can see a 5. We have it associated with the 5 line weight. Let's check all of them. So now we have the 7, and the 7 is associated with a line weight. And then we have the 3, and the 3 is associated with the proper line weight. And that's how we have that script operate. One thing that we could do is change the reference for them, and that's something that we've done before. Change the reference, set that to not a reference, and sometimes I like to do that when we have lines that are layered on top of each other, especially when you are dimensioning a detail or family. Having those layered lines not be referenceable makes things a little bit easier and causes some issues when you're constraining dimensions in the project environment. So that's the simple script that we created and that you can create too. If you haven't had a chance to really dig into Dynamo and try and figure out what you can do to like kind of streamline your process, Dynamo does what basically Revit can't. And with a lot of these additional packages, it really opens up the possibilities for what you can do. So this is just a simple script to get you started, showing it like it doesn't have to be super complicated. It does take some time to figure out how to, work with Dynamo and all the different language that you have, but realistically, this will streamline my process and save me so much time and headache down the line. And I know that it's going to execute the same exact way, so I don't have to worry that something's going to be missed whenever I am doing all these details. And especially since I have to do this for 70 plus details right now. So that's just something that I would recommend you take a look at. If you're looking for ways to improve your infrastructure and streamline your workflows, reach out to us at bimtemplate.com.